Open University.
Greetings, my dear webnauts. This, what you see on the floor here, is a pile of my sweaters. I think they're all second-hand sweaters, and it's something I delight in, especially. It's a consolation, it's a good reason for the winter to come rolling around, is that you can wear sweaters. And sweaters are more for me than mere warm garments. They're kind of portable semiotics. Haha, because this is the Open University. And semiotics meaning simply a system of signs. Each sweater has its own color, its own texture, its own motifs and designs, and its own associations. And I think what I'm going to be doing in this little vlog is trying on these sweaters and just talking about where I found them and what the associations and repercussions, semantic and semiotic repercussions are for me when I wear them. So this is the first one I'm going to put on, just sort of randomly chosen. It's actually a very recent one, and I got it in an arcade. I wonder if the camera is going to be subtle enough to pick this up. I got it in an arcade in Osaka, quite close to my house, near Bentensho. There's an arcade with one shop on it called Freebox. And that in itself is quite interesting because in Japan, Fleebox and Freebox, flea market and free market are they're homonyms, they're very close in sound. And it tempts you to think that what you get in those shops is free, but of course it's not quite free, it's nearly free. I think this was like 500 yen, which is actually getting to the expensive side of second-hand sweaters that I buy anyway, and that's about $5 US. This, as you can see, is very short, and the arms are also quite short. It's a women's sweater. What I like about this is that it's iridescent. It's got these big chunky knitting patterns on it, but it's also got all these different colors. So it looks kind of brown, really, from a distance. But if you see it close up, it's got all these quite bright colors. It's like green and blue and purple. So it's a kind of heathery sweater. Maybe it's my inner Scot liking this. But what I have to do when I get these types of sweaters, which are the arms are too short, and of course Japanese people do have short arms, like Italians. I have to add armlets, basically, and there's a whole semantic fun to be had from what the armlets mean. These blue ones, I don't know who they're worn by. The black ones I thought they might be worn at funerals, but they're actually worn by clerks, so that the ink spots, the black ink, doesn't show up. And it keeps, generally, these are worn to keep your sleeves out of your work. So if you're doing agricultural or machine work or something, you don't get dangerous accidents occurring because of sleeves. But I use them to extend the short sleeves. And there's other things you can use lengthwise to extend a short sweater. But I do like this one. Freebox is one of the arcade second-hand stores that I regularly frequent, and it's the problem with those is that they're going out of business. Yeah, it's really hard for them to stay in business because their prices are so low, and also because they're run by really old people often, those stores. Okay, this is this kind of mustard-colored. Would you say mustard or ginger or a kind of dark caramel and orange? And I guess this is. I bought this in Humana, which is probably the second-hand store I've been faithful to the longest. It's in Berlin, and there are several branches in Berlin. It's a huge charitable department store of second-hand clothes, and this was in the DDR section, so it's from old East Germany, former East Germany. And as you can see, it's got these very 70s pattern stripes and colors. I don't know, it's almost too strong. It overwhelms anything else you're wearing, this. And but I like the fact that it comes from an extinct state, a state founded on the principles that in some ways the Britain that I was brought up in, the welfare state, National Health Service Britain, resembled, or was shadowing. I think the agenda was being set by communism during the Cold War period of my youth, and so this not only brings back my youth, but gives me an opportunity for nostalgia about the welfare state, which in Britain has been seriously whittled away and is in great danger. Next one. So we've got one Japanese, one German so far. This one I think I bought in Britain. Now, where did I buy this? This is of a very light material. It's got very long sleeves, and it's probably, this is one of the dangers of second-hand shopping, is that you can buy things which look like old second-hand sweaters from the 80s or whatever, but they turn out really to have been copies by high street, Next or H&M or whatever. This one, again, it's like the DDR one. It's got a slightly overwhelming pattern, which is also rather breast-like, these two Argyle diamonds. And so I don't wear this very often, but I do like that boundary between the acceptable and the unacceptable, and between sort of yuck and gorgeous. And I think this is kind of straddling that boundary. It's kind of yuck and kind of gorgeous at the same time. So here's one I don't have to struggle with. This is a kind of cardigan, which I guess would be the first instance of what I call shufu clothing. Shufu is the Japanese for a housewife, and I buy a lot of shufu stuff. Housewives in Japan have a very particular kind of shop dedicated to them, which often has very beautiful Japanese fabrics and kind of strange garments, which are often kind of ruched, is it the word? They're kind of, I don't know, I have one, I'll show you in a second. This is one, it's kind of a semi-kimono, it's got these little strings that tie around. That's a bit of a giveaway. These housewife clothes always have these strings, and it's kind of iridescent. It's got beautiful kind of dragonfly colours of orange and turquoise. It's not a sweater technically, it's more like a, but it's got these sort of gathered short sleeves. So again, it's keeping the sleeves out of the way of the work you're doing. And but this grey one, which I don't wear very often, I must say, is I think I got it in a local Shotengai, the closest arcade to my house here, and it's an old man who runs it. There are often people in their 70s or even 80s who run these second-hand clothes stores. I don't know if they're selling their own clothes or the clothes of dead friends. This is something I often also wonder about, whose skin you are stepping into, literally, whose second skin you're stepping into, and it is probably dead people. Here's another cardigan. Let's go through the cardigans as a category. This one is kind of over the line of yuck. I've never really found a way to integrate this successfully with my other clothes, and I find it kind of just yuck in a kind of 70s yuck way, or even early 80s, I don't know. And also it doesn't really have a good figure-hugging shape, and I don't really like the collar very much on this one. Where did I get this? I think I got this out at a shop called Emerald Famille. At least that's the what it says in Japanese over the shop, but I think that was an older shop which they just squatted out on the Chuo arcade in Amagasaki, my current favourite hunting ground for second-hand clothes. Basically, you depend on poverty. You depend on low rents as well. As soon as an area starts getting higher rents, the second-hand shops are going to be the first to leave. The real second-hand shops. I'm not talking about these curated, trendy second-hand shops, which I despise. What I want is blanket-on-the-ground type clothes shops. This is, where did I get this? This might also be from Emerald Famille. This is so Japanese, and I love this. Despite the fact that it's actually a smoking cardigan, and you can see it's got smoking cigarettes on it. I don't know if that's visible. Other camera. Smoking cigarette motifs. And this is a very bright, I don't know if the camera's able to pick up just how bright the red is in this. And I really feel this is me slipping into a kind of a Japanese man. I think it's a man's cardigan for once. Japanese man who's enjoying his life smoking. Perhaps he goes to the sento, he goes to a little izakaya, little hole in the wall eating joint where he drinks and eats and smokes. And he's basically into pleasures. This is who I feel like when I wear this. I like the black line as well somehow. I don't know, maybe the fact that the black line doesn't really join up on either side is is interesting, and I like the little knotted cord here. That's good. It's such a vibrant red. There are so many reds, even the basic red. Red is not really a very characteristic Japanese color. It's interesting. It's a sort of Chinese color or Korean color. The Japanese don't wear bright pillar box red. Here is a Korean sweater. This is the second in this kind of genre I've bought. Oh no, maybe this is the first one. I've got another one down there somewhere. But it's got buttons at the back, and it's got a pocket at the front. It's a particular kind of design of sweater, which is Korean. And I think I bought this in Korea. No, I bought this on Amagasaki, again at the Emerald Famille shop, I think. Which I think is run by Koreans, by Zainichi Koreans in Japan. So this is, it's a nice simple sweater. The sleeves are slightly short, but I kind of like the way they end there. I don't know, something quite nice about that. And of course you have the little pocket, which is, I think, a kind of housewife thing. I think when there's a little cute pocket at the front like that, it usually means it's a housewife garment of some kind. So, this is this golden tobacco, rich tobacco, Argyle pattern sweater is one I bought in Finland, in Helsinki. There's a second-hand shop run by a Russian lady near there's that famous cathedral in Helsinki, which is sort of built into a rock, into a hump, a mound, a rocky mound, an amazing sort of science fiction modernist cathedral, which is under this dome-shaped rock. Really worth a visit if you go there. And just off one of the satellite streets of that, on one of the satellite streets off that, is this old lady. Quite a big second-hand clothes store with some amazing riches. This sweater I really like. I found it there. I think it was €5. It's an Argyle sweater, which is a Scottish golfing associated pattern. Golf plays quite a role in my wardrobe, actually. I think the Knickerbocker plus 2s that I wear, rather the Japanese carpenter pants, which are modelled on those Knickerbocker plus 2s, derive originally from golf, or from really ancient Scottish trouser designs. So I really find that fascinating, the putative connections between these Scottish garments, even tartan is really big in Japan in various permutations, of course. We Scots have exported these patterns like the Argyle. I don't know quite what the Argyle means. I guess it is related to tartan because it's a geometric shape. One thing I don't have is any paisley pattern sweaters. That would be horrible. This is maybe I won't even put this on because I wore this in the last podcast. You've probably seen this already. This is, I think, the latest sweater I acquired, which is the gradated one from a new shop in that same arcade in Amagasaki called Mix. And it's, I think it's probably my current favourite sweater. I feel at home. It's in a sort of toweling material, though, which I don't normally like, almost like a sweat-absorbent toweling material. Here's another cardigan-type sweater, which is from that local arcade here in just the other side of the docks. This fascinates me because of the shape of it. It's got these kind of shark fin shapes built in, and I think some little pocket here, a kind of compartment pocket. And because I don't quite know how these garments are supposed to work, often I find it very, I don't know, it's also quite form-fitting, this. It clings to you in an interesting way, and you can pin it. You can put a clothes peg, for instance, here. And so that's one I like. This is another Helsinki find. It's kind of weird that some cities are just amazingly good for second-hand clothes. Helsinki is one of them. It seems to have quirkiness, white quirkiness. I think I felt that when I first moved to Berlin as well. The white, especially the old people you would see on the U5 line, the U5 line, had a quirky particularity that you only get in certain parts of Eastern Europe or Northern Europe. Prague is another place you get these, especially second-hand cameras in Prague. You get the most amazing, bizarre cameras you've never seen before. This sweater is kind of, it's like halftone. The patterns, the bands here that go across it. It's blue. It's long. It's short-sleeved, or no sleeved actually. This is almost like a tank top from the 70s, and I guess I like the halftone, almost like a graphic design effect. The old letraset half-toning, or obviously half-toning comes from print processes and magazines and newspapers, especially newspapers. This one is also a recent acquisition. It's kind of on the line again between acceptable and unacceptable. It's an 80s pattern. It's geometric. I call it Neo Geo, this one, which of course is also the name of an album by Ryuichi Sakamoto, Neo Geo, from about 1984. And I think this shade of green is particularly 80s. This was very big in about the mid-80s. And these sort of neo-constructivist geometric patterns got big then as well. And it's one of the periods I'm not quite sure that I want to revive. I think I revive a lot New Romantic period, but I cut off at about 1983, so it's almost like I'm too old to be reviving the mid-80s, because the mid-80s is already starting to get alien to me culturally. This is another cardigan. We have to talk about texture here. It feels very smooth and comfortable, but also it's really knotty, and there are bits of the wool kind of starting to come off, to knot up. I'm sure there's some sort of shearing you could do to avoid that, but this is quite good because you can, I think a sweater often, when you can gather it with buttons at any particular place, often women, in Japan especially, they have these little cardigans which they gather by just doing the top button, which then their breasts sort of swell the top part of the cardigan in a sort of appealing way. But men tend to button at the bottom only, so that the cardigan seems to tight at the waist, but then sort of broadens as the chest expands in a manly way. So we have to talk about weight as well, weight of wool. This is a very heavy sweater, perhaps the heaviest I have. It's a kind of almost chainmail in 2 shades of purple wool. And it's got a very nice knit, a weave pattern. I mean, I'm not very technical about sweaters, but this, I would say, the interest of this is in the fact that it's got a cross weave. So it seems the grain of the wool, of the weave, is diagonal, which is really, really unusual, and makes it kind of arty. Feels kind of arty, this one, because it is like a work of tapestry art or something. The seam on this arm sort of spirals round the arm. Or perhaps that's just the way I'm wearing it. No, but it is. The weft, the warp and the weft is particularly interesting on this one. Here's a white, short-sleeved... sorry, I was very aware, my last video, I kept doing this with my tongue as if I've got pubic hairs on my tongue. It's not that I'm endlessly cunnilingus or something. Maybe I am. This one, a white sweater. White sweaters often have a power of their own. They have a purity and an aggression. I think that's why certain pro-art thread movements of fashion have embraced white as a kind of an aggression. It could also have a racist implication. This one, it's a Korean sweater which I picked off a barrow in one of the Namdaemun market, I think in the center of Seoul. And it was very cheap. It was like €1 or less, $1 or less. Somehow it's just, there's some things which just work, and I think this rounded collar on this one really works well. Somehow it gives it an otherworldly feeling, like it's a Roman breastplate. That's what I feel. It sort of has a certain massive heft to it. The short sleeves are odd because, why do you put on a sweater? Because it's cold, but your arms want to stay cold. I don't really get the logic of a short-sleeved sweater, but I guess you have a shirt under it with long sleeves, usually. And of course, I can wear my coloured or patterned armlets with this one. I have to put my eye patch back on each time. Pale blue, we get into the category of, I should be throwing these in the discard pile. Pale blue sweaters. This one I'm particularly fond of. It's a cheap one, again from Emerald Famille in Amagasaki. And it's got these, or is it? Actually, it might not be. It might be from somewhere else. It's got these amazing rounded shapes on it in kind of pastel colours. It's a bit short. The arms are long, but the length is quite short. And I love these pink and beige and blue shapes. Rounded forms like this suggest the 70s to me. So it might date from the 70s. Yeah, this one was a real find. I remember being very excited to find it. And this, by the way, what I'm doing now, it's a feature I pitched to an art magazine recently. I gave them 3 or 4 different ideas, but this was the one I was most excited about. I said, let's do an essay about my sweaters, because there are layers of depth in this topic which would befit an art magazine. Actually, any topic you choose can have layers of depth in it, which lead to areas of your interest or global topicality or whatever. And they rejected it as an idea, or they said it would have to relate to an art topic in some way. So I'm doing it for you as a vlog. This is another sleeveless sweater, polar necked and sleeveless, which suggests that your neck is going to get very cold where this is from, but your arms are not. Again, it's a bit of a mystery to me. Your neck and half your face is going to get very cold. This is Korean. I got it in, I think the first week of this year in Busan. Busan has an amazing night market. Actually, it looks quite good with this blue. Yeah, I like how it looks with this blue shirt. Busan has these night markets which have a couple of alleys dedicated to these, my favorite type of second-hand clothes place, which is blankets on the ground type place. Outside, no roof. They've got insides in the shops too, but they tend to put a blanket for the cheapest clothes out front, and it's just a heap, like I've done here, heap of clothes which you can sift through, and you have little stools, little coloured plastic stools, really tiny ones, which you can sit on while you're sifting, and that's my ideal, because you feel you're going to really get bargains in a place like that. So here's going back to the 80s thing of this green colour, this particularly aggressive synthetic middle green, I would describe it as. I found this sweater on a blanket on the street outside a market in Warsaw, Poland. It was very cheap and it's very proletarian, and it must be from the 80s when Poland was still emerging communism. And it's so kind of, I guess it reminds me of the Atari logo or something. It reminds me of video games and things, this one. I do wear this. I like this one. This is kind of a very me sweater somehow. But again, it's pushing into areas I find slightly toxic. I find this like a toxic shade of green, and combined with such an aggressive black pattern, it's something a little bit acidic and toxic about it. And I guess there's an appeal, even in music or in any kind of art, there's this appeal between horror and fascination. And this is something I refer to in my essay, The Anxious Interval. There is a little elite of hipsters who are renegotiating. They're at a line of renegotiation between the obviously appealing revived things from the correct period and the things which are dodgy, which aren't yet accepted, which are still, a bit avant-garde in terms of revival. So I don't know I don't know if we're still in that kind of cycle now of reviving particular eras in other particular eras, but I personally get anxious if you revive anything post about 1986, because the late 80s were the era of big hair. The 90s were the era I think of as really awful neo-psychedelic, too much effects and too much nasty acid kind of stuff going on in the 90s, video effects and horrible, as if everything was curdled, you know. So I personally don't revive the 90s, but I think younger people in their 30s probably are happy to revive the 90s. Here's another sleeveless sweater, V-neck. I think I like this for the acid, orangey red, sort of tomato shades. It's got green bands and red, and they're different widths, and also they seem to be pulled by some sort of high tension towards the V, which is not bordered or banded in any way. That's also very interesting. And on the back, there's nothing. It's just red.
Open University.